Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's be completely honest. Are you happy with your job? The fact is, a huge number of people can't say yes to that. Too many of us are stuck in a job we've outgrown or one we never really wanted in the first place. But we stick it out and we give reasons like, what if the next move is worse? And I've put years into this place. And maybe the most common one, isn't everyone miserable at work? But there's a difference between reasons for staying and excuses for not leaving. It's time to get unstuck. It's time for Strawberry.me. They match you with a certified career coach who helps you get from where you are to where you want to be, either at your existing job or by helping you find a new one. Your coach helps clarify your goals, creates a plan, and keeps you accountable along the way. Go to strawberry.me/career and get 50% off your first coaching session. That's strawberry.me/career.
Hello and welcome to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast, a podcast about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and psychotherapist. I'm Tess Brigham, I'm the therapist, and I'm here with my sister Brooke, who is the attorney. And we're so happy to be here today because we are going to talk about Monica Lewinsky. And so for those of you who are maybe under the age of 30, 50. You probably are like, I've heard of this. And, Lewinsky is talked about in rap songs and we hear it in popular culture. But if you've never quite understood the story, then we've got a really good, juicy story for you because it is a good one. So we're going to give you a quick synopsis, as quick as we can, because the thing about this particular affair is it is complicated. Before we started recording, we were talking about how it is a bit of a domino effect, that this wouldn't have happened if one person, if one person had made a different decision, or if these things weren't happening over here, then this wouldn't have happened over here. And that's what makes the story so interesting is that each piece of it was vital to get to the next part.
Right. And it actually started with the government shutdown in 1995. All of the staff of the White House were sent home, and they elevated all these interns to do the jobs of the staff. And suddenly, Monica Lewinsky, who was a 21-year-old White House intern at the time, found herself working in the chief of staff's office, answering phones right next door to the president's office.
Yes. So here she was with access to the president. And so she and the president start a flirtation. We're not quite sure. Maybe it started before the shutdown, but the shutdown really made things happen.
Yeah.
It really sped
Brought
things up.
them together.
Yeah. And plus, I guess also with the shutdown, they were alone. So less people around. So it made it easier for them to sneak around. And so they have this affair. Then Monica is transferred shortly after the 96 election.
It was before the 96 election.
Yeah, so he gets reelected in 96. She then gets sent to the Pentagon, we believe because people were maybe seeing that there was something going on between the two of them. She thought she was going to get sent away and brought back. She's now, 22. She's working at the Pentagon, and she's lovesick and so in love with the president. And they have this obviously this relationship where she's just sitting around waiting for the moment that he will call her or talk to her.
Yeah, he calls her like every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Or once a month. I mean, whenever he can. And then he uses his secretary, Betty Curry, as a go-between.
Yeah.
He has the secretary call her and say, oh, the president wants to see you. And so she drops everything, goes to the White House, and you see they're exchanging gifts with each other during these visits. And so it's continuing.
Yes.
The actual affair went on for over a year, where they were, even after she left the White House and was at the Pentagon, he would still call her up every once in a while and, arrange for her to come see him. So it was ongoing, even after the election.
So Monica, this young girl, she is at the Pentagon. She ends up confiding in probably the worst person in the world to confide in.
The world's worst friend.
Yeah. So she confides in Linda Tripp, and Linda Tripp at the time was double Monica's age. I want to say she was in her 40s, maybe late 40s, early 50s at the time. Monica's this young girl. Linda is divorced with grown kids. So I think, maybe in the beginning she saw Monica as, this someone like a daughter to her. So they become friends, and Monica, tells her, I'm having an affair with the president, which starts a whole chain reaction. The problem was that at the same time, Linda Tripp was once working in the White House. She was a holdover from the Bush administration, never liked the Clintons, somehow had this personal, like the minute they came in and came into power. Because that was the other thing, if you look back at what happened, was that we had, up until 92, we had Reagan for 8 years, then we had the first Bush for 4. So the Democrats winning the White House in 92 was huge. Bill Clinton was young in comparison to all these other politicians. Hillary was not going to be the wife that shows up on the lawn smiling and waving. Hillary was determined to be there with him and make an impact. And that turned a lot of people off. People did not like that.
Yeah, Linda Tripp hated the Clintons. And that also played into this. If she didn't hate the Clintons, I'm not sure she would have done what she did.
No.
Because... She also just really thought she was very important.
Yes.
Had a lot of illusions of grandeur.
Oh, poor.
She felt like she had a lot to say, and she wanted to say it. She was looking to write a book.
Yes.
She first wanted...
Even before she met Monica, she wanted to write a book.
She wanted to write some sort of tell-all book about her time as an insider in the White House, because she had worked as the secretary for Vince Foster, who was White House counsel, good friend of the Clintons, and who committed suicide early on.
Yeah, do we know why he committed suicide? Did this have to do with the Whitewater stuff
well,
or no?
What I've heard is that, he was very close with the Clintons, so close that a lot of people think that he and Hillary were having an affair. But they were very close, and I think he felt very responsible for the fact that he couldn't stop all of these inquiries into the Clintons. There was the Republicans were just out for blood. They were searching wherever they could to find dirt on the Clintons, and so they were investigating everything. There was this Whitewater investigation, which was an investigation into a real estate investment they had made years ago in Arkansas. They had Travelgate with the White House Travel Office. They were just looking for stuff, and I think Vince Foster just felt overwhelmed, responsible, couldn't stop it, couldn't protect the Clintons. So that's the only theory that I have heard. But Linda Tripp thought, she kept saying, well, I was the last one to see him alive.
Yeah. She felt very much like that was her, I don't know, but that made her very paranoid.
Yeah.
And so then when she got transferred to the Pentagon, that made her very angry and also very dismissed. And here she goes from being, next to the Oval Office into, this massive, probably like bunch of cubicles.
Room of cubicles.
Into the Pentagon where no one cares what, I think she was arranging tours or something for maybe famous people to come and hang out at the Pentagon. So she was already mad. And so when Monica confided in her, she was like, awesome, I've got now something good and I'm going to use it. And I'm going to figure it out. And she had been talking to a New York literary agent who suggested that she start to tape the calls. And so she starts taping the calls with Monica. And then at the same time all of this was happening, Kenneth Starr, you want to talk about Kenneth Starr and how because he was the one investigating Whitewater.
Yeah, he was.
And then the travel.
Yeah, they appointed him as a special prosecutor to look into all of these things. And again, his team of prosecutors that were working under him, it was just a witch hunt.
Yeah.
And they were coming to a dead end. They really weren't finding anything that was going to stick. And then at the same time, this woman from Arkansas, Paula Jones, filed a lawsuit against Bill Clinton saying that he had sexually harassed her back when he was governor of Arkansas. And in that case, these two things converged, because once it got out that Linda Tripp's secret about this affair, which was leaked by her literary agent, Lucianne Goldberg, it started to spread through Washington, and it got to the Paula Jones lawyers, and it got to the Starr Commission.
Yes. So suddenly now they got something.
Yeah.
And of course, the irony of all of these things was that what brought him down was his womanizing, because the thing was that everyone knew back in 92 what was going on with Bill Clinton. It was well known. It was talked about a lot. Was the fact Jennifer Flowers was a name that was floated around. Listen, I didn't even really pay attention to politics at that time, but I knew who Jennifer Flowers was. I knew Bill Clinton was, apparently a serial cheater. We all knew these things about him. But now they've got Paula Jones, and now they've got Monica Lewinsky. So the Kenneth Starr is like, awesome. Now we have something really good that we can use, and everything blows up, and this is where we are today. And Bill Clinton eventually gets impeached, but he's not convicted. How does that work?
So what led to the impeachment was
that's right, the lying.
So what happened was eventually Monica Lewinsky got a subpoena in the Paula Jones case. They wanted to take her deposition, and she's freaked out. And now what I'm describing here is from the Ryan Murphy it's not a documentary, the American Crime Story series Impeachment that, dramatized all of this. But basically, Clinton tells her, she says, I don't want to testify. I don't want to get you in trouble. She's more concerned about him than she is about herself.
And she's also swearing up and down she hasn't talked to anyone. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
She's told Linda at this point, but she's like, no, I haven't told anyone. Anyone.
Which I'm sure they don't believe, because obviously she told somebody. But so Clinton basically tells her, well, if you just sign an affidavit that says that we never had a relationship, and you don't have any information for them that will help them, then this will all just go away, and everything will be fine. And she's so naive, she's only like 22 or 23 at this point, and she's like, oh, okay, and she has no idea that she could be facing prison time or anything like that. And so she goes to a lawyer who Bill Clinton tells her to go to, who has already drafted an affidavit that she just signs. And so right there, she's committed perjury and obstruction of justice and conspiracy, a bunch of federal crimes just by doing that. But she thinks that that's just going to make it all go away, but it doesn't.
No. So then... So when everything becomes public, that's what Ken Starr and his team of goons, that they pick her up and basically threaten her and tell her, you've broken all these laws. You could spend 28 years in jail, in prison, and you're not going to have to say that to a poor 23-year-old is devastating. And they tell her that's, you need to cooperate with us. And then there's a bunch of rigmarole of like how they eventually get to that place where she cooperates, but basically she has to cooperate, and it's shown that Bill Clinton also lied under oath and lied about their
in his deposition.
Yeah.
In the meantime, just I think the next day after they confront her at the Pentagon City Mall.
They needed her info ASAP so that they can get her on record, then have him commit perjury, because they knew they didn't have anything. Like, he had to, it was the perjury that brought it down.
But he committed perjury anyway. I never really understood why it was so urgent that they get her cooperation before his deposition, because he just went and did his deposition and committed perjury anyway. So, and that's what he did. So he lied under oath. And that's what the impeachable offense was. You hear people talk about, oh, well, he was impeached for, having an affair or whatever. And it's like, no, that's not what he was impeached for. He committed a federal crime.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he was impeached, but not convicted in the Senate. So, and he remained in office. But, he got off relatively, I don't want to say unscathed, but, compared to what Monica's life was like after that. And she did get immunity, and, didn't have to go to prison. But she was also put under part of her immunity deal was that she could not talk about the case. She could not talk about Ken Starr. She could not talk about any of it for a period of several years. So while the whole world is talking about her viciously, she has to just stay silent.
Well, she wrote that book in 99, though.
Yeah, but this all happened in...
I thought everything came to the head in 98.
Yeah, 98.
So she wrote a book in 99.
So, but she was while all this was happening, because it took like 13 months or something for them to negotiate her immunity deal. It really went on for a very, very long time. And they were jerking her around a lot. And so I guess she couldn't speak about it until after, everything had happened. But that whole there's like a 2-year period in there
where she's sitting home alone.
Yeah, she's
like hiding.
She cannot defend herself. She cannot say anything.
Yeah.
She's being portrayed on TV as just, this horrible person.
A slut, a stalker. Every late night talk show is talking about her, making jokes. I mean, that's, you hear people say, oh, I'm not a Lewinsky. That was, she just became synonymous with blowjobs, basically, because that was the infamous, famous thing, was they never really did have sex, but that she did give him a blowjob, at least one that we're aware of. So do you want to go through some of the major players? Because I want to talk about, I have a lot of feelings about Linda Tripp and about everybody involved, but do you want to just go through the players and talk about them?
Sure.
So Linda Tripp, it was funny when I was watching the Ryan Murphy 10-part show, and I was trying to think, because I do think that in that show they were trying to show Linda. I don't think they showed her in the best light, but I do think that they were trying to show her as a whole person, like as a whole person, like what motivated her life outside of this particular situation, why she did what she did, why she thought what she was doing was right. But that's why I was just like, well, so is Linda Tripp, is she a hero? Is she a villain? At some point, because Monica confided in her around the affair, Linda was worried that she was also going to get wrapped up into this. At the time, she was already recording her. Yeah. But Monica did, I will say though, Monica did want her to lie.
Yeah, she asked Linda to also sign an affidavit, and Linda wouldn't do it because she understood. She was more savvy. She understood that was perjury. Yeah. And that was serious.
And she was already recording Monica. But if you take that part out, the recording her, if she wasn't already behind the scenes trying to angle to make this affair work for her, is she a terrible person for not wanting to lie, not wanting to? Because I think the thing was, I think part of the reason why Linda did everything that she did, part of it was that she wanted to get a book deal, and she wanted to be seen as more of a political insider than she probably was, but I think she also didn't want to lie. She also didn't, she didn't want to have to sign an affidavit and lie.
Well, yeah, because that wouldn't help her. That she wasn't that good of a friend to Monica that she's willing
Listen,
to.
I'm not defending her. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, devil's advocate. Can we see in any way, shape, or
But,
form?
I don't know.
Maybe why Linda did what she did.
Well, it's very hard for me to see, honestly, any good in what she did because, she claims that she was somehow helping the country by exposing this, by exposing Bill Clinton. And it's like, was that really necessary? Like, what did it get us?
It wasn't.
He did not get impeached. He's still the president. After going through all that, he's still the president. You accomplished nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing but negative. I mean, you ruining Monica's life.
And yours. I mean, basically that was... So when
Everyone
I was
hated
watching
her
the
after
show, I remember thinking... I guess I didn't realize before I was watching the show, like, her desperation, the devotion she had to the job, the devotion she had, her hatred of the Clintons. And she definitely, this is not like a hot take or anything, but she's definitely a narcissist. So what's fascinating about this entire situation is that Linda's a narcissist, Bill's a narcissist, and there might be some other players that were definitely also narcissists. But you can see this dynamic with Linda and Bill, how they've handled the entire scandal versus how Monica has hired. I think that you can really see the differences in personality. And because Monica, as she's walked away from this, it has really always maintained, like, I did some dumb things. I shouldn't have done what I did. Like, she took responsibility. She took responsibility for the fact that she made these mistakes. She does say, yeah, I was young, but I'm also, I did these things. I shouldn't have done them. I'm really sorry. But Bill and Linda passed away in 2020, but I don't think Linda's ever really taken any kind of ownership or responsibility for her role in all of this.
No, not that I'm aware of. And Bill Clinton
has, oh, hell no.
Certainly has never, in fact, to this day, whenever, both Bill and Hillary get asked about Monica Lewinsky. It came up in 2020. It came up around the Me Too movement because when people started examining all the men in our country, that people started reevaluating.
Yes.
And started really, myself included. I really started looking at Bill Clinton for what he really is. And like I said, we were so desperate in 92 to have a Democrat in the White House that we overlooked so much. And it's regrettable, actually.
But that was the thing about Bill, was he was charming. Like, he is charming, that people would talk about how, he would like lock eyes on you and you would feel so great. I think that he charmed us all. I think because he was a real breath of fresh air. They played Fleetwood Mac at the at the inauguration. It was, if you can understand, like, for all the baby boomers out there, we're not baby boomers, we're not that old, but
we're Gen X.
Gen X. But I mean, for all the baby boomers, this was huge. Like, they were seeing themselves being voted for the first time in a long time. And so, people just focused on what they liked about him, and we're like, okay, he's having these little, issues with women over here, but let's not focus too much on them.
Well, and then after this happened, like I said, Monica's life, I don't want to say her life was ruined, because she has made a lot out of her life, and she really has come through this remarkably well. But her life certainly changed and was different because of this. And yet Bill Clinton is now seen as this elder statesman.
Yeah.
And the way that he and Hillary still will not even acknowledge Monica Lewinsky as a human being. They really just talk about her like, oh, well, that was that. And, I mean, it's just so cold. And, he's never apologized truly to her. He's never taken any responsibility. And it's just, that's upsetting.
No, I know. Well, so when I was watching Linda Tripp, I kept trying to figure out, like, well, what kind of narcissist is she? I was really fascinated by that because, and I'm sure, people talk about narcissism. We've already talked about narcissism on the show, but it comes up a lot, especially in these big issues, big political scandals. But there's a real when you're a narcissist, there's a real inflated sense of your own importance, the need for excessive attention and admiration, a real lack of empathy for others. And there's a kind of narcissist, what they call overt or grandiose narcissism. So sometimes with these people, they're treated as very superior in childhood. So those expectations follow them into adulthood. And they tend to take this attitude of the world doesn't see my value. So they're pro-social. They'll do things to help other people, but it's only really to benefit them. And if you kind of push against them, they become aggressive and dominant and exaggerated. And so then the opposite of that is, not the opposite, but what they call covert or vulnerable narcissist. This is usually in your childhood, there's neglect or abuse, it's a more sensitive narcissistic behavior. It helps them protect them from feeling inadequate, right? So if I'm so wonderful, I'm so great, and if you've been hurt by the world, then you can use this wall of protection for yourself. Like, they get offended easily, or they get anxious when people don't treat them as special. They believe they deserve more, but also doubt it at the same time until someone else convinces them that they do. And what I thought was so interesting about, there's a bunch of other categories of narcissists, but these are the two main ones that are talked about and people will refer to, is I thought that both Linda and Bill had both of these, like both sides of this coin, because Linda talked about being teased as a child, that she, has never been seen as very pretty, that she grew up, I guess, with an abusive father, German, very strict, and that she obviously went into politics as a way of making herself feel more important. And she really did see herself as incredibly important and felt a lot of a sense of superiority by working in the government and being close to secrets and information and all of that. And when that was taken away from her, right, there was very much this feeling from her of, okay, I'll show you. Like, you took this from me. How dare you? So I'm going to get it back any means necessary.
Yeah. And she just really thought, like I was saying before, she thought this was going to lead somewhere, and it just literally led to nowhere.
Yeah.
And literally no one cared what she had to say. Mm-hmm. There was a scene in the Impeachment series where she makes some big speech. She calls like a press conference at the end of all of this and makes this speech, and literally no one cares.
Yeah. The I am you speech. I think that's what it was called.
Yeah, I don't even remember. But yeah, in the end, nobody really cared. Once she leaked, her information to the world, it was like, that was it for her.
Well, and I think that she thought people were going to see her as an American hero,
right.
Someone like that was there to and what people really were like, oh my God, you're a terrible friend. Like, you befriended this person, because the tapes eventually got out. Everyone got access to the tapes. And that people saw how she calculated, very calculated, got Monica to admit these things on tape. And, you see in the Ryan Murphy show that they do show these moments where maybe Linda Tripp is having second thoughts, or feeling like, well, maybe I shouldn't do this. And I think that but then you also see Sarah Paulson's such an amazing actress, but you also see in that same moment of her, no, convincing herself, no, this is the right thing. So she had convinced herself so much that this was the right thing to do, that what she was doing was good and was going to help the country and help the world and get Clinton out of office and all of that, that really drove her. And which is why I was asking that question in the beginning. Can you find some level of empathy for Linda Tripp? yet again,
kind of hard.
it's hard.
Even people who didn't like Bill Clinton thought that what she did was messed up.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
It really is. It was really just so unnecessary. It made no difference about his presidency, about any. It just made everything worse. You know, kind of like what's happening. It just made the country more divided.
Yeah.
It just wasted time, money, everything.
Yeah, and Clinton survived. Then Hillary gets tapped to be in the New York Senate.
It
right?
certainly helped her.
It helped Hillary.
You know, it softened Hillary. People felt badly for her.
Yeah.
And it softened her enough that people started looking at her in a different way. And I think, again, this is one of these serendipitous things about this case. I don't think she would have gotten elected senator if this had not happened.
Yeah, probably not. I don't think they would have tapped her. I mean,
I think people would, because, people hated Hillary, you know. And so I think it softened her up enough that people said, oh, well, you know, she's done some good things. Maybe I'll take another look at her.
yeah. So it helped Hillary. And of course, the irony of all of this is Monica wrote a book, Clinton wrote a book, Hillary wrote a book. Linda Tripp never wrote a book. She never wrote a book. She kind of went off into obscurity.
Yeah.
I guess she got remarried and apparently, you know, I don't know if she really did anything, but she was in debt from lawyer fees and all of that. Because again, you know, whatever you think of Monica Lewinsky for going on Barbara Walters, it was very famous Barbara Walters interview that she did. And writing the book, she had to do those things.
Oh, she had to pay her.
She had to pay the
legal
attorneys,
fees.
and this was the only way to do it. Same thing with Paula Jones. Paula Jones also posed in Playboy and did the psychic hotline and did a bunch of things that people thought were really gross. But the problem was that once you're this infamous person, your ways of making money are really limited, and you have to kind of do these things. So that's what Monica had to do. And of course, Linda, in the end, you know, just got nothing and died in obscurity.
Yeah. Well, because nobody wanted to hear from her.
Yeah. So I will say that I was always, you know, for such a long time, I was always a fan of Bill Clinton. I did like him. I thought he was charming. I really, back in my 20s, I did not follow politics, or really, I kind of got the headlines here and there. I always voted, but I just didn't pay attention so much. And it was one of these things, like watching Clinton in this show and just everything that we've seen in the last umpteen years. It is really hard to wrap your brain around the fact that, oh my God, this guy is a narcissistic, womanizing rapist. You know?
Well, I don't know if I would go that far.
But he was accused of rape.
Yeah.
He was accused of rape by someone in the 70s.
Yeah.
So we don't.
Juanita Broderick.
Yeah. So we don't know. We don't know exactly. What is it? Juanita. Yeah. Broderick.
Yeah. Juanita.
You're good. You remember people.
Well, you know, here's the thing. We use the word narcissist a lot. Mm-hmm. And I guess I don't really fully understand the definition of it. But well,
I just gave it to you a few 5-10 minutes ago.
Well, but
inflated sense of their own impulsive, inflated sense of their own self. So this is the thing, that people can have narcissistic traits. You can have the traits and not necessarily check every box. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there's a lot of talk these days around, because if you get into all of these subsections of narcissism that probably represent a good chunk of the world that we live in, there's one kind of narcissist called the communal narcissist that really is just anyone who posts on social media. It's anyone who puts stuff out there in the world, wanting that admiration and attention. But when I think about narcissism, what makes one person a narcissist and another person not, is that sense of awareness and accountability for what you do.
That's what he really lacks.
I really do think that how you can tell the difference between someone who is a narcissist and someone who isn't is the ability to say, you know what, I screwed up, I'm sorry. Or you know what, So with Clinton, every step of the way. Well, let me back up for a second. So I do want to say that this is why we see a lot of narcissists in politics, in TV and film, in all of that.
They like attention.
Because they like attention. This is what they're going after. As someone who worked in Hollywood, I also know that people, especially, I can't talk about in politics, but I assume it's the same, that when you work in the entertainment business, everybody feels very special and important. Everyone feels like, I work in the entertainment business, so I am therefore better. I know this person, or I can get this person on the phone, so therefore I'm a better person. So I do think that people might not necessarily be, full-blown narcissist or full-blown anything, and just like attention, like to be the center of attention, and then they get into these worlds, and then that piles on, right? And then you start to feel like, I am really special, I am really wonderful, I am really, and then you start to lose your mind a little, I guess, is one way of saying that people can kind of morph in and create these traits. But I don't want people to think that every last human being in the world is a narcissist. But
well, it's just that today that word is thrown around so much that to me it just feels very diluted. But I mean, I think with Clinton, the thing that struck me is that impulsivity, like the risk that he took. Every time he brought her to the White House, every time he was alone with her, I mean, I'm sure people had to have seen them. I mean, the security risk alone. You don't know anything. Oh, I don't know how well they vet interns, I mean, you don't know anything.
Huge.
And she did turn out to be, I mean, I don't know. She was so young. I guess anyone
she was going to have to tell somebody.
Yeah,
there's no
anyone
way.
that age probably would have reacted in the same way. I don't think you could expect a 21-year-old to just keep a secret like that, and because she was just so lovesick.
But that was the thing, right? It wasn't that she was keeping this secret and blabbed the secret to anybody because she was like, oh my God, look at me, I'm dating the president. It was, I am so in love with this person. I am so lovesick, and I have to talk to somebody about what's going on with me. And oh, here's someone willing to talk to me about it. Great. I think it was much more of that. So, but I think that it comes down to the accountability, because you see how Clinton really spun things with Monica, that his team, they immediately went into place calling her a stalker and calling her, oh God, I wouldn't have sexual relations with that woman. And he just immediately started gaslighting.
Started lying.
He started lying. And gaslighting. And then when you see in the Ryan Murphy thing in the show, what's so interesting about that is that, it's these level of lies. So in the beginning, it's like the Monica stuff is going to come out. So he's like, okay, I'm just going to kind of slightly lie a little bit to kind of get out of this. And he keeps lying and lying and lying because he really, truly, he didn't want to have to go back to Hillary. He didn't want Hillary to find out. And he didn't want, if he had just talked to Hillary about this in the beginning and kind of squashed some of these things, it would be very different. He just started, if he had admitted from the beginning what he was doing, the affair, none of this would have happened. But he was lying partly to protect himself, but partly because to protect Hillary and how it would look to her.
Yeah. And another sliding door moment in this whole thing is if he had just settled that Paula Jones lawsuit.
Yes. Well, but in the Ryan Murphy, it seems like they weren't like that. She wanted to settle. They offered her $700,000. They wanted to settle with her, and then they got that Christian kind of women's coalition played by Judith Light,
Susan something.
Yeah, Susie. That she came in because they wanted to sue. They didn't want her to settle. They wanted her to sue, so it became a big.
Well, and her husband,
oh God, that guy.
Her husband, he was saying that he wanted an apology, and then I think the both of them were like, we want an apology, which, that just really doesn't happen when you settle lawsuits. That's not a thing. But they could have figured Susan Carpenter McMillan, that was her name. If that woman hadn't been involved,
yes,
they probably would have.
They would have taken the $700,000.
They would have taken it
and left
with or without an apology. But at every turn, there's just somebody in there. Just
well, and there's this common thing. There are all these young. Paula Jones was young woman, in her, not as young as Monica, but still young.
Yeah.
And every step of the way, it's like, each time these women are trying to like, move forward, get forward in their lives, like, there's some Politico user comes sweeping in saying, let me use you for our agenda,
Right.
basically is the best way of saying it. But, and the thing is, even today, Clinton, I think obviously the way people are looking at Clinton is very, very different. But even still, like, they go up to, we have some friends who live in Chappaqua, which is where the Clintons have a house. And, even up there, people were talking about the Clintons when we were up visiting. And it was very much known, like, Hillary's never around. She's a bitch. She's this and that. And Bill is Mr. Personable at the Starbucks, shaking hands, meeting people. That he still, that kind of charm that people just, oh, it's Bill Clinton, attitude. Again, these conversations were before me too, I want to say.
Yeah, because, that, again, he just keeps getting a pass. Oh, but he's so charming. He's so nice. He's so this. He's so that. And also, most of his policies and the things he did as president turns out were horrible.
Yes, unfortunately.
Like crime bill, the, welfare reform. In hindsight, he was a terrible president. I mean, just this, what he created with this affair alone. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. I'm just feeling very angry at him right now. But
well, let's talk about Monica. Because I have to say, I watched her TED Talk. You watched a bunch of the things that she was doing. One of the big things, which I think was so horrendous, where people were like, ugh, her, right? Like that she wasn't pretty enough, that she wasn't this enough. She was
they
really
made fun of her
weight and that she was fat. She wore a size 12. So I guess I'm obese because, they're like the average size of an American woman, and she's fat and disgusting.
She was none of that.
And
she's a beautiful woman.
I mean, I feel like she looks better today than
she
she's
looks
ever.
Fantastic.
Oh my God. I love the highlights.
Yeah.
I love the highlights.
She looks great.
And
she looks so young.
Yes. She looks younger now than she
looks
did
like
then.
she's
She looks fabulous.
30, 35 maybe.
But, this poor girl was ripped through the mud. They unearthed every last person who ever...
Yeah, her high school boyfriend.
Yeah. And then it turned out that she had an affair with someone else, that she had an affair with a married teacher. Again, let's talk about
authority figures.
Another authority figure. And, and I think that's one thing that people have to recognize is that, especially for women, that, when you are 21, 22, 23, and an older man is telling you something.
It's intoxicating.
It's intoxicating, but it's also, you're going to listen to them.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, I look back on when I was younger, how much I just kind of was like, okay, went along with stuff that today I would never in a million years go along with, or think was okay, or think that it was the right thing to do. So she was a young girl who obviously, she liked it. It wasn't so much that I think she liked older men. I think that she happened to have these experiences with older, powerful men that then sort of swept her up.
Yeah, I mean, look, I could totally see that happening to me.
Yeah.
I could see it happening. I mean, yeah, everyone acted like, oh, I would never do that. That would never be me. She's just... What is wrong with her? And it's like, okay, I dare you to put your 21-year-old self in that situation. And the
leader of the free world, who's this older, charming guy, is paying attention to you, buying you gifts, telling you how wonderful
how smart you are,
how special you are.
This is her first job of any kind. You know what I mean? And this power differential, like all of it. It's just... That's just how life is. 21-year-old women will always be 21-year-old women. They will always, be susceptible to this type of thing. Mm-hmm. So, she was treated horribly. She then, went off to the London School of Economics and got a master's degree. And she couldn't even get a job. Nobody would hire her. She had to kind of start her own businesses. she was like a Jenny Craig spokesperson.
Yeah, she did a
for a
TV
while.
show. I think she tried in the beginning, like she wrote the book, and I think she did that Mr. Personality
Yeah.
show. I think she was trying to see, like, could I make a living from doing these things, but that didn't really pan out. And yeah, you know, she wanted to at 21, 22, she wanted to get married and have children. And I think that's the part that's really heartbreaking is she's never been married, never had children. And, you know, I'm sure she has a lot of feelings about this. I don't know what her decision was not to get married or have children, but dating is incredibly difficult for her. She says that she always has to, every date she goes on, she has to address the Clinton stuff and what happened. And so her TED Talk, which I highly recommend checking out because it's all about, you know, shame and how we are very much a culture of shame. When we see people doing things that are quote unquote bad or wrong, we go right to a place of shame as opposed to a place of empathy. And I was thinking about this because I was thinking, the thing about anxiety is, right, that anxiety wants things to be very black and white. So when we don't have all the facts, right, when we don't know exactly what's going to happen or how it's going to look, our brains are designed to sort of fill in those blanks and create what we think could happen. And of course, this is what we see with anxiety. People start to catastrophize, future trip, worry about things, right? But I think when it came to this scandal, I think that it was almost like, and maybe this is just what happened in my own mind, it was almost like I think people have a very hard time looking at this whole situation and looking at it from this lens of shades of gray, right? Linda Tripp isn't all good or all bad. You know, Monica Lewinsky isn't good or all bad. And Bill Clinton, though we don't love him, isn't all good and all bad. And I think when you look back at that time, what happened was that it was almost kind of like, as a culture, we couldn't hate our president.
Right.
We couldn't dislike him. We couldn't, you know, see him for what he was because especially Democrats were just like, wait, hold on to him. We need him so desperately. And I think that that's when it was so easy to put your time and attention over on Monica and Linda to make them the villains of this particular situation. And so, you know, in order to love someone, our anxiety wants us to also hate someone. And that's what got so divided by this poor girl. But anyway, this is one of the quotes from her TED Talk that I thought was so good, that she is the patient zero of losing a personal reputation on a global scale instantaneously. And that's very much what happened to her. Yeah. She was mobs of virtual stone throwers. Because, that was the other thing that she talked about in her TED Talk that we haven't talked about yet, which is this all happened in 98, 99, right? And so this was the dawn of the World Wide Web, yeah. Right? So this was when, you know, you would have to do dial-up.
Yeah. I remember I got my AOL account in 1997.
Yes. And then you have to like unplug one thing to plug in something else.
Unplug the fax machine.
Or the phone.
To plug in the dial-up.
Yeah, you couldn't use dial-up and your phone at the same time. So it was released on the Drudge Report. So all of these tapes, everything was able to very easily be read. So all of the stuff that we see now, right? Like we see, you know, Britney talks for 22 minutes and now across the country we can see, you know, or someone's transcribed it and put it on a million different things and it's spread everywhere.
The Drudge Report was a website that was basically kind of like a TMZ or something like that, but for politics.
Yeah.
And all the political stories. And he is actually Matt Drudge. He was the first one to put this whole story out there. Mm-hmm. And then later when they did, you know, the Starr Report, when he released that, the report that had all of the details of all the sexual encounters and everything, of course that went up on the internet and people could then read all about her. And all about every single sexual, and of course these guys they were obsessed with sexual details. Oh, and guess who was on the the Starr Committee?
I know, I saw
our friend Brett Kavanaugh. Yes.
Well, of course, another ironic thing was that Ken Starr apparently I don't know much about him. It's the only thing I know him from, but that he's super religious.
He's very religious, yes.
And that of course was the joke, was this uber religious, church on Sunday, conservative man that does not talk about sex is now reporting about cigars and other things that were happening between everyone. So, do you have any? I think that's all my notes.
Well, I want to say that, excuse me, even though, Monica had a rough time, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
In one of the interviews I saw with her, she said something, she went through a lot of therapy and working on herself. And, at some point she just came to the realization that she was never going to be able to get away from this. This was always going to be a part of who she was. It's never going to go away. And so she said she had to learn how to integrate it into her life. And that's when she started, did the TED Talk, and she started getting involved with anti-bullying and cyberbullying campaigns. And she made a documentary called 15 Minutes of Shame. And, that's what she's doing now. And, she writes for Vanity Fair. She, has written about Me Too and, her experiences, looking back on everything that had happened to her. So, I really admire her. I honestly don't know how she didn't kill herself.
Well, that was in the TED Talk. She breaks down and she said she was like, and the tears really got her, because she said, she's like, I'm sorry, because her mom had her shower with the door open.
Yeah.
Because she was so worried about her, and not for a day, but for years and years.
Yeah.
And when in the TED Talk, they show the audience, there's not a dry eye. I'm tearing up, there is not a dry eye in the house, because what she talked about in the TED Talk was about a boy who, his roommate taped
Tyler
him.
Clementi.
Yeah, his roommate taped him having sex with his partner, someone
With another man. With another man. He was not an out gay person.
And put it out there to everyone, and then he jumps off a bridge.
Like the next day.
The next day. And so that's the other part that too, is that, your brain doesn't fully form. I'm going to say this a lot in this podcast, because we do talk about a lot of young people, right? Your brain doesn't fully form until you're 25. You are not quite who you are until 25. Kids are, people talk about teens being really impulsive, but kids in college are really impulsive. And in your early 20s, you're really impulsive. So for someone that young to see that your whole life, you feel like in that moment in time, your whole life is ruined. It's over, like all of it, that of course she was probably near suicidal, and then the parents are freaking out about what's going to happen. But that's what I'm trying to say about the difference between Monica and Linda and Bill and Hillary and a lot of the players of this entire situation is that I think it shows you a lot about a person and a person's personality, because the fact that she's been willing to go and meet with a therapist and work on herself and look at herself and own her part of the, the mistakes that she made. And, even if you talk to, I think Linda Tripp maybe did some interviews towards the end, like, here, we've still got Hillary and Bill denying everything and pretending like we shouldn't be paying attention to it. And here's Monica saying, okay, hey, this is a part of my life. Let me figure out how to laugh at it sometimes. Let me figure out how to teach from it and help people and grow from it. Yeah. And I think that's what I'm trying to say. I know that I've used the word narcissist a lot, but that's, I think, what is really the difference is this ability to take a step back and reflect upon your life and who you are and have some sense of awareness. It's awareness. She's aware of what she did. She's aware of it, and she's going to take ownership of it, and she's going to move forward. As opposed to the Clintons, who are just like, don't talk about that. Don't talk about that. Don't talk about that.
They have not. I don't think they've done any therapy over that. I mean,
no,
it really is remarkable what she has done as a human being. The personal growth. It's
so, Monica, if you're listening, we're sorry. You and I are the same age, born a month apart, and I was in my 20s, and part of it was I wasn't paying attention. But the other part of it was I, too, just fell along with everybody else, with the Jay Letos and the David Lettermans and the people making fun of her, all of it. I didn't go on the road and make fun of her or anything, but I mean, I, too, thought, oh, why would you do that?
Oh, really?
You know?
See, I didn't. I empathized with her because, again, I could see myself doing something like that. And, you know, I don't know. I really saw myself in her, and I just thought, oh, wow. Like, yeah, I always had a lot of empathy for her. And
I mean more of the laughing along with the jokes. Like, not, I think that it was really easy to laugh along to the Monica jokes, that, you know, we weren't standing up for her, looking back, like, we should have been standing up for her more.
Yeah.
And I think that's
yeah. Instead, you have Hillary and all of Hillary's friends calling her, I think Hillary called her a narcissistic Looney Tune.
Yeah.
I read that somewhere. I mean, yes, Hillary, who's supposed to be this champion of women, and
yeah, that's what, you know, what's so interesting too is after I was doing all this research, I was watching on, I don't know if it's like HBO or like Netflix or Hulu or one of these shows, right? That, you know, Hillary and Chelsea are doing a show called Gutsy. Mm-hmm. They're gonna go see Kim Kardashian. They're seeing all these people along the way, and all I can think is, so this whole show is about women, and the two of you aren't at all willing to take some kind of ownership, or even, I don't know, interview Monica along the way.
oh yeah, because you know Chelsea is on the bandwagon too. Like when she's asked about it,
Yeah.
she has the same crappy attitude,
Yeah.
as well. And
Who knows if that's her attitude or not, or if it's just her parents, you know, if her parents told her, I don't know.
well, she's a
she's an
30-something-year-old
adult,
woman. She
You're
can
right,
she can speak for herself. But no, they haven't made it right, any
No.
of them.
So, Monica, we're sorry.
Yeah.
Come on our podcast.
We're on your side.
All right. So thank you so much for tuning in. And we realized with the other ones, we didn't do this. So we're going to do it now. So review us on iTunes. Give us 5 stars. We would love the reviews.
And it helps other people
find
the
us.
podcast if they're interested in these kind of things.
Yes, we plan to have other things in the future, website, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff, but we can't get that together right now. So
One step at a time.
yes, for right now, please just give us a 5-star review.
Subscribe.
What else do we want them to do? Just those two. Just
that's
those 2 things.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do. So
It'll
if you hit
take
subscribe
just 15 seconds.
and give us a 5-star review. And if it's not going to be a 5-star review, don't give us the review.
Right.
Just
It's okay.
just move along.
You don't have to listen again.
Yes. All right. We will see you all next time.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Give me a mountain with lots to do. Give me the sunshine, give me a dew. Give me something simple and true. All I need is sunshine and a cool, refreshing mountain dew. So give me my good friends, give me a dew.
Grab some friends and an ice-cold Mountain Dew today.
Mountain Dew.
Looking for a fun night out? K1 Speed puts you behind the wheel for an adrenaline-filled time you and your friends will never forget. Off the track, the fun keeps rolling with arcade games, great food, and drinks. They even have private party rooms for your birthday parties and corporate outings. Race hard, laugh harder, and claim your spot on the podium. K1 Speed, More than racing, it's an experience.